Hello and welcome to exercise 43, where you take everything you've been doing with object-oriented analysis and now you try to apply it. The book covers everything you're going to need, so you have to read the book. It's really necessary that you learn to read about object-oriented designs or like how to craft them with words, because there's tools that will let you draw them, but the tools don't work. And the main thing is when you run into when you try to use object-oriented programming to model, is what we call it, model a domain or model what's around you, it's almost always based on people typing a description, your boss or someone else, or they write about something they want, and you have to translate that into something that you implement. So this exercise is going to lead you through the process I use. This isn't the only way, but it is one way that works consistently. Here's the breakdown. What you do is you write up, or you find the write-up for what you want to make. In this case, we're going to make a game with some aliens. Okay. Then you start going through and finding all the nouns. Okay, the nouns and the verbs, the structure, right? You're just trying to find anything that's mentioned. If I mentioned aliens, weapons, armory, pod, all those things. All right. Then I pull those out, all those nouns. For whatever reason, nouns seems to work. It seems to work as the basis for your classes. I pull all those nouns out and I make a big list. All right. Now this big list is it's random. You're just basically just stream of consciousness. Oh, I need a map. I need an engine. I need a planet. I need an escape pod. Okay, so on and so forth. And then you take that and you craft a hierarchy. And you ditch some things that don't really apply. Like in my game, I'm not going to have an alien and a person and all these things. It's going to be too complicated for the book. You could go back through and add them though. But for me, I'm just going to have this basic structure I have here. And it's very simple. I'm going to have a scene, and then you're going to have different scenes that are going to inherit from the base scene. And then I have a map and an engine. So once you have that, you take verbs and just things you might need in this structure. I know I'm going to need next scene, and I know I'm going to need an opening scene. I know I'm going to need to do play on the engine. I know I'm going to need enter. Now you might not figure that stuff out until you start trying to make these classes work, but just sort of make some guesses. If I have a person, I'm going to need to have shoot. I'm going to have the amount of damage they've had. I'm going to have run, things like that. What do people do? What are the verbs in your description? All right. And then once you have the verbs and you have the nouns, it's simply a matter of creating a basic structure. So this basic structure, right, is intended to be something that sort of functions structurally. Things call each other and they go to each other, but has no real content to it. It's sort of the skeleton, the bones of what this system is supposed to do. So in my case, I have a class, and notice it doesn't have anything. It just got the enter function. That's it. It's just the noun and the verb. And then I have an engine, and it's a init, and it's got play, and that's it. And then I have death is one of my scenes, central corridor is one of my scenes. If I were to really do this, I may even just strip these scenes out and start with just 2 scenes. And then I have a map. I know I'm going to need next scene and opening scene. Now, if you look, that is pretty similar to what I did here. My final sort of outline is very similar to the structure of the Python structure I just typed up. So you're going from concept, creative idea. Hey, I want to make a Facebook. I want to make this. Oh, well, what's in that? You write out the description for that. You go, I want a website for artists. I want a chat room, something like that. And you write out a description for it. Then you go through and you pull out the nouns. Well, if I have a chat room, I have people, and I have a user, and I have a room, and I have messages. Those are your nouns. You pull those out. What do those do? Well, in a chat room, a person chats, and they can receive messages. Oh, and the rooms, people can enter rooms and leave rooms, and you go through all the things that are verbs, things they can do. And then you build your structure. Now, once you have your structure, you can set it up so that it just sort of like is a skeleton and you try to run it. So in this case, this skeleton isn't going to do much, right? So if I do this, 43 classes, that's it. That's all it does. But the skeleton, typing it up, you're going to then be able to go in and add a little bit here, add a little bit here, get that working. So then the next phase is to do just that. If I'm implementing this, in the book, I have this huge whack of code, and I go through it step by step, and I sort of explain it to you. But that is not how you enter this code in. If anything, you should have learned that you should do things very step by step. So I would strip all these descriptions out, and I would like replace them with maybe just this, like just a line. I would start with only one scene, and I would get the map working. So I would do this, I would strip all this out, I would strip all those scenes out, and I would get just the map and the engine working so I could play one scene. And then I would go through each, get the scene working, get the engine. That's difficult enough as it is. And then I would go and I'd make, maybe I'd make the death scene first. Maybe I would come and I'd make the central corridor after that, but no description. I would get all the scenes working together with their structure. And then I would make that, I would fill in the blanks, okay? And this is a very common pattern that works very well whenever you're creating anything. If you want to go from idea to implementation in anything, in music and art and writing, I can tell you the easiest way to do it is to start with your idea, play around and try to figure it out, then start over and structure it, build up the structure, and then fill in the structure. It works way better than trying to do it all at once. The way that people try to do this that fails is they try to just start at the top and type each line in, and then when they get to the end, they run it, and it has tons of bugs. Now, as I've said before, you can do it that way if you do it with slight modification. Type all the code in, attempting to be very mindful of how you type it, then go back through it and review it over and over, looking for any mistakes that you could possibly make, and then attempt to run it. Keep track of how many errors you have and keep updating and tracking your errors. Your goal is to be able to see potential errors before you run it. That's one way to do it, but that is mega challenge mode. That is very difficult. I recommend instead you do it in pieces, bit by bit, the way I've been teaching you this whole book. And in fact, I do all of my code that way. I do it in tiny pieces and I run it over and over and over and over and over again. Okay. Now let's look at one thing that trips a lot of people up. I want to talk about debugging again. Okay. So one thing that really trips people up is this right here. Okay. Everyone comes to this exercise and they ask me what this line of code does, or actually what these lines of code do. If you've been following along with the book, you should know my answer is going to be print, print, print. You can't tell what this is doing by looking at it. You are not a computer. Your brain isn't trained yet. You have to print what's going on. If you can't print, if you don't print, you're not going to figure it out. But people still try to. They don't understand what's going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you would print debug this. So I'm going to say play, and I'm going to do current scene, and then I'm going to go last scene. All right, so that's my first step. What am I printing? I'm printing that I entered the function and what variables were being that I'm interested in, okay? If you need to, print the scene map too. Now, I would come down here and I would go print, and maybe I'll use like a different character like that. And I'm going to go before while, okay? And I'm going to have the exact same stuff. I'm going to repeat this, okay? Now it seems weird because I've just done it up there, but trust me, this is going to be essential for you. And actually, let me do it this way. I do it the way I know how to do it. There, that's a little easier. Before while, and I can go current scene. All right, so that way I know I entered play and I set these variables, and then before the while I had that. Another way to do it would be to just do this too. Actually, yeah, I like that better. Yeah. All right, so now I would say, and then I could do print like this, top of while. And again, actually nuke that. Yeah, one more time. Okay. And then that's going to tell me the current scene and the next scene name. So then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to go end of while, and I'm going to add next scene name. I can do that. And let me just do this, move this in, and I'm going to go next scene name equals. Okay, so what am I doing? Oh, and then I'm going to do print end of play current scene equals current scene. All right. So I have basically debugged every step of this. I know what the variables are before it is going in and at each pass through the loop. This is basically going to go all the way through this, all right? And it should run, give me a second, Python ex43.py. Oh, I got a syntax error. Okay. Oh yeah, here we go. All right, so I entered play right here. That's that first message. So we pop back here, come up. All right, entered play. And I say before while the current scene equals main central corridor. So I know the class name is central corridor. So that's what the current scene is. And let me see what else we got. And then at the top of the while, it's still central corridor. Okay, so there we go. Going to the while loop, going to the while loop, going to the while loop. Okay. And then it calls next scene. So when I come up to the scene map, that's the map class up above. So let me do this, class map. So now I have more things that I can do. Here's next scene. Now you know this. Everyone gets to this line of the function and they go, what does that do? Well, no, you know this. It's a dictionary, right? We studied dictionaries. You call get. You know the get function returns either a scene or none. We have the names. So you're passing in scene names. You're passing in names. That makes it so that you just have to return, see that? You just have to return the name of the scene, and the map knows how to map the scene to a class. Now, the only thing that's new is this. It's not in a def under init, right? That makes it get created once and attached to the class. So you can get to the class by doing this. Use the class name, and then you got scenes. It makes the map more like a module. Okay, so now we're back up at play. So we do current scene, and we enter it, and then we get the next scene. And we keep on going. Go back up to the top. So let's play it. I'm just going to type some garbage, see what it does. Okay, so it goes does not compute. Goes end of while, and current scene is central corridor. Top of while, current scene is still central corridor. Okay, so then let's go look at central corridor. So how do we win the central corridor? Let's say Dodge doesn't do it, Tell a Joke does it. All right. Tell a joke. All right, so we tell a joke, and it prints this out, and then we go, the current scene is now Laser Weapon Armory, and the current scene name is Laser Weapon Armory, so that's what we got from the return, and then we go there. Now we go look at the code. It says, after tell a joke, we do return Laser Weapon Armory. That's all you have to do. We keep playing this until we die. And then you trace everything with these enter and exits. If you don't understand how the map works, you do the same thing. You don't understand how each part works, you do the same thing. You print all these variables out and you study the output. Incidentally, it's probably a little easier to do that if you do it at the stage of having no text, right? So that's one option you can have. But for the most part, this is how you debug what that function does. It's very simple. It's just using a dictionary in the map to find a class or an object that you've made. That's it. But for some reason, people come to this and they think they're gonna sit here and just study this, right? They think they're gonna sit here and study this code and understand it and just stare at these lines until they're basically going to make it confess. But the only way you make it confess is to print. You have to print the variables. And it's pretty much just printing a variable at every stage, right there, right there, right there, tracing through. Another one is you can take that and then write them out on a piece of paper and trace how everything is being called on a piece of paper. That helps you too. Draw lines if you have to. Do whatever you can to understand how this is flowing from one thing to the next. But the first step is print. You have to figure out how things are doing by print. Okay, so that's that exercise. This exercise can be very challenging, so don't feel bad if you start getting in there and it's a little overwhelming. Take it in small steps, kind of do it a little bit at a time, and then you'll actually learn a lot from this exercise, a whole lot. So I could see you spending a week or two on this just to kind of get it. Last thing, if you go through this and you get through and you still feel like you don't know anything, the key to learning language is repetition. So go back to exercise 41 and start over. It's nothing wrong if you have to start over. That book is designed so you can roll back to exercises and repeat them. Each time you repeat an exercise, each time you restudy a book, you learn more. I have books on painting by very, very good artists that are so full of information. I've read them 5, 6, 10 times, and I still get something new in each one. It's sort of like you don't have enough information right now, enough knowledge, enough education to understand what you read. So a lot of things you read, you kind of maybe miss it. Then you learn some more and you go back and you read more, and now you can actually understand a little bit more because you know more. So going back through and repeating things is totally fine, and it really helps. Okay, see you later.